Emails?
Hello.
Yeah, boy.
That's great.
Do you
Okay.
know, each time I open that app, it's like the easiest way to do podcasting. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Doc. I'm Ian, your host, and as you can tell by the intro, we had a few problems trying to get this recorded, but we've squished the bugs, and I think we're ready to go. In today's episode, we'll be discussing Ghosts of Sugarland. It's a 2019 Netflix documentary by Bassem Tariq. If you haven't seen the documentary yet, go check it out on Netflix, because we'll be discussing spoilers from the get-go. I think it's time to introduce the other voice you heard at the beginning of the episode. That was Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hi, everyone.
So, Matt, what did you think?
I thought it was a good documentary. Short. There was, for me personally, I thought there were things missing from it that I would have liked to have made it a better documentary. That being one main person's kind of point of view kind of missing from the documentary, just to hear that side of things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about that just now after rewatching it. I was like, I really want to know. Can I say his name? Mark's
Yes,
story. I like, because you're only getting kind of one side of events here, and it's from his friends, obviously. So
Yeah.
you know that it doesn't come across that they're bad mouthing him or anything like that. But it's such a subject that I think it'd be really good to hear his version of events, possibly a follow up. Who knows?
Yeah, I feel like it could have definitely benefited from a follow-up. I mean, right now, it just feels like it's the first episode of a series. And I would still think that if it wasn't for the text that flashes up at the end telling you what happened. And I mean, even if you Google it and find out what happened to Mark at the end, you realize it's like an ongoing story. The whole thing just left me wanting more. And especially to find out what actually is going to happen to Mark and how the friends would react.
What's actually happened to him? Because from what I've read, he was caught on the Syrian battlefield by a militia group, and it appears that Mark had written like a cover letter wanting to teach English out there. From what I've read up, like I've literally just scraped Google like in the last 10 minutes, so I haven't got a lot here, but like it's just it doesn't say that he's gone back to the US, but it just says he's in Texas now. He now faces federal indictment in Texas.
Indictment charges.
So what's that? Is he a free man at the moment?
So, as far as I can tell, he's not a free man right now. He was charged with material support of a terrorist organization, and that carries a possible penalty of up to 20 years in federal prison and a maximum fine of $250,000.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. And there's one thing that I found that the documentary never tells you is that he was a substitute teacher in Texas.
Exactly. I read that as well. Like, it was a comment from his father. And his father was saying, basically, you know, like, my son doesn't have that in him. That's not in him. And it mentioned there about him teaching in Texas. I was like, I didn't get one thing of that from the documentary. And as well, his age. Like, he's in his 30s now.
Yeah.
Like, I watched that documentary and think 21. Like, I thought he was fresh out of college, like fresh out of school. Like,
I mean, what did you think of their use of pictures at the end?
I thought that was pretty clever. Like, I like that. The masks in themselves, to begin with, I found difficult. Mainly one mask being Buzz Lightyear wearing sunglasses.
He was...
I just found very, very difficult. Like, my first watch, like like I say, I went in completely blind, like didn't read the synopsis, nothing, like knew nothing about it. So I went in and I was like, okay, this is kind of strange. Obviously their faces are hidden for a reason, but yeah, like at first, like I just couldn't get over the Buzz Lightyear with sunglasses. I just couldn't take it seriously. I was like, this is too crazy.
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite mask out of the lot. And was it Diego from Dora the Explorer?
It's Diego from Dora Explorer.
Yeah.
I've got Alex Kidd ? I'm like, who is that?
I've never watched Dora the Explorer myself. It's just,
I think you've been watching a little bit more Dora than you're letting on there, Ian. But that's cool. That's okay.
I don't know, go back to this. I think the backgrounds of the scene are like when they're getting interviewed, it's because it doesn't
feel like a normal interview space.
No, it just feels like kind of on the fly, doesn't it? Like if you look at was it Kylo Ren who's being interviewed in his bedroom, but it also looks like a kind of like a lounge because he's got a sofa right next to his bed, and I'm like
see again from that's why I kept thinking kind of college, like, you know, like maybe that's their kind of dorm where it's, you know, so small that you'd need a couch or a seat next to the bed or something like that. But that is the main thing from like reading a bit more afterwards. Like I say, I've only scratched the surface myself. But it feels there's a lot left out. But again, it's a 21-minute documentary. I suppose there's only so much you can put in. But it, in a way, I suppose if you're like us and you want to find out more, then you'll seek it, you'll search it out. But then there's some people who will just take one look at a documentary like that and take it for what it is, and I just feel there's a hell of a lot of information left out. I feel the documentary could, like, it's almost like that is a tester documentary, like for a bigger documentary in the making.
Do you reckon it fell apart? Like, do you reckon it was meant to be a bigger documentary and then they just realized, oh wait, they can't get his side of you because he won't be a part of it, and they just fell to pieces, so they released what they could on this. I just feel like it does need the other side of it. I mean, it's kind of a mystery, and is it FBI informant thing?
That's like one thing. Like I know you are, like as well as me. Like we're both fans of the TV show Leftovers, and throughout the documentary, before the end, I just kept thinking, "Let the mystery be," and like, you know, like it's almost like I found that within the documentary, when the friends are talking about Mark, like it feels as if like they have these two choices, these two trains of thoughts of he either, you know, went to join ISIS or he was a FBI informant. But for them, the better story of the two, the better one to believe is the FBI informant. Although it still made them angry if that were the case, because, you know, he was supposed to be their friend. At least, you know, in their minds, at least he's out there doing good in their eyes, you know. Whereas the other side, he's going to join this group. You know, that's just the thoughts that must put into your head being a friend of that person, the what ifs and the guilt as well of being their friend and perhaps not seeing that coming and not being able to stop that from happening. But I did get a very much kind of let the mystery be until the end, where you get that black screen with writing telling you exactly what's happened. You're like, oh, well, that takes away the mystery completely.
Yeah, and then they reveal his name, his full name, which I obviously Googled and found out more about. And that's how I found the interviews with NBC. I just don't understand why they didn't put he was a substitute teacher and that he went there to teach. And I know they're trying to do it from the point of view that he went there to join ISIS. But if they would have mentioned he was a teacher, I feel like it.
But again, like when they reveal at the end, like the truth, it does state that it was after filming that this truth came to light. So I wonder if, you know, they had a budget they had to get this thing made. They didn't see a possibility perhaps of him coming back. Like they even say in the documentary, his friends say, like, they might have to come to terms with the fact that he could be dead.
Yeah.
You know, so they didn't know one way or the other. Like, they were complete in limbo with how they could feel about him.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I suppose at this time, yeah, they don't know what's happened to him because he hasn't come back yet, and it's, yeah, I don't know. It's weird
but again, if you know, obviously they may have finished the actual filming of the documentary, but by the time they just finished filming, this truth came to light, so they were able to edit that into the end of the documentary. I can't see why they weren't able to put that little extra bit of information in there, like,
yeah,
because you could say that in a way it's almost trying to paint this guy in the worst possible light, by not putting that in there. But at the same time, the whole documentary, like, it's his friends, it's people that have grown up with him, and they don't really have a bad word to say about him. He comes across as a nice guy, like a good friend, a nice guy, good human being, and what I got from it, from him, from Mark, let's say, is, like they said, you know, he was an outcast, and you could see he was an outcast, but he was brought in, like, almost like to a family, like, this friendship group, like, brought him in, and, you know, because he hung around with them all the time, and he believed what they believed. They said, well, you know, you say these few words and you become a part of this religion with us. If you believe it anyway, then why not just say these few words and you're in? You know, almost like a part of our family. You know, it's very accepting. I thought, but I feel that maybe there were perhaps more issues underlying with him that made him seek out kind of a darker path through it, perhaps. Like, but then there's things like he went, I think he went away for like 6 months or something to work, and it was for some, I don't know, trucking or something like that, lorry driving, and it was a predominantly white town, the place that he went to, and they were very much against Muslim people. So perhaps, you know, 6 months of just, if he was kind of proud about being Muslim and not scared to let people know he was, then maybe he was attacked, like, whether that be verbally or whatever. And maybe that, like, in his kind of, you know, I'm guessing whilst he was away for 6 months, he wasn't with friends. From what I've read as well, I mean, I couldn't quote it exactly, but it said he went elsewhere before he went to Syria. He was somewhere else before that. And I can't remember whether it said he was trying to teach there as well. So again, it strikes a lot to me of just this guy trying to find his place. Like, and he had an idea of what he wanted to do, and maybe he just kept feeling this rejection. Like, I mean, it's so difficult to try and, you know, get into a mind of anyone. But yeah, it's tough, because I mean, there's no way of judging, you know, no matter what. Like, you've got to look at someone going over there to join a group like that. You've got to look at it as a bad thing. But does that necessarily make him an out and out bad person? Like, what were his real motives? Like, that's, you know, it's so tough. It's very, very tough.
Well, his friends his friends did say that he was starting to come up with extreme views,
which is understandable. Like,
Yeah.
but then I would like to think if any of my friends were wishing death on anyone, like wherever they be from, it's not something I would like, you know. Like,
No.
it's just something you don't do. You don't wish that upon anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very tough. I think from the knowledge we have from what has been given to us through the documentary, I think you can just assume that, or I assume that he went on a downward spiral, and perhaps, you know, we don't know what his we're getting a point of view from a select group of friends of his, but we don't know who he may have or may have not been talking to on the internet, and what kind of agendas and views they were pushing on him, and which may have, you know, it's like, you know, it can kind of take over, especially when it's very, very tough, because you don't know his state of mind either. Like, was he depressed at the time? Was he was obviously looking for something, looking to belong. And perhaps, you know, you could put it that maybe he was given this false sense of security, possibly. Almost like you come over here and you're doing good because you're doing something that you believe in, but you're also doing good because we'll welcome you. You're one of us, which to someone who is completely on the fringe could be the open invite they need, you know?
Yeah, it's tough because in a way we don't know Mark. All we see of his personality is from his Facebook posts, and even those are read by an actor. I mean, his friends thought he was an FBI informant, just trying to infiltrate their friends group to find out more about them.
Well, I think one of them said there was one point where they were being tracked. There was an FBI car outside their house every day because they were Muslim, like because of the faith, you know, that they practice, which, you know, that's completely counterproductive for the forces as well, because, you know, if these are innocent people, which they are, then, you know, that you're putting them into a hole and you're putting them into a box, and how does that make them feel? That's one thing that I did get from this documentary, probably more than anything else, because the whole thing with Mark is, I just found, like, okay, we have this side of the story, but there's always two sides to begin with. So it's very difficult to really react or to even understand his point of view. But one thing I really did get is how Muslims have been treated and made to feel since 9/11. There's countless times within the documentary where these, well, at the time I thought they were still kids. I thought they were maybe 19 or something. But where these people who are Muslim, like, that they say, you know, after September the 11th, like, they'd be wearing T-shirts which would say Muslim on it, not in any bad way, like, but their parents would say, please don't wear that. I don't want people knowing that you choose to follow this faith. Which, even that in itself, is completely segregating a group of people, and this group of people have done nothing wrong. It's a select few. Like with any group of people, you get a select few that can do wrong, but you don't tarnish a whole group because of the wrongdoings of just a few. But it feels like within society and within our world, that's the way it's kind of gone with people who follow Muslim faith.
I think that's the focal point of the documentary, isn't it? It's literally how people have been treated.
Yeah, but yeah, that was I mean, the my first viewing, I came away. I don't know how I felt after the first viewing. Like, it definitely needed a second watch. Because a lot of it to begin with, I was kind of like, I felt almost a bit uncomfortable with the whole setup to begin with. Just the masks, the whole documentary is basically a set of interviews that have been spliced up. And it just felt, it didn't, it was almost jarring to begin with. But, I watched it and I took what I did from it. I didn't make any kind of notes to begin with. But yeah, on my second watch, I seemed to gain a lot more from it. Like, it was almost like I was truly listening the second time round. Like, all the visual had gone away. Like, I was like, I'm okay with the masks. I'm, like, not the masks are any big deal really. But it just felt strange because it was like, I can't read these people. It's a blank space. I can't really read them. I can't read emotion. Like, so that was difficult for me to begin with. I felt.
I agree. Like, it's weird. I feel the masks are so distracting that you're watching it for them first. I feel like watching it the second time, you are taking a lot more of the story. But it's where you're kind of just blindsided by the masks in the first part. Do you feel like the masks were necessary? Like, could they have just blurred it out? Is it a gimmick to kind of get people to just watch it?
I mean, it's a difficult one. I can understand why they might want to wear masks, because they just might not want to be associated within their real everyday lives. If especially it going out on Netflix, there's going to be a lot of people that see this documentary. So, perhaps it's even for that. Like, they just don't want the bother of people coming up to them and being like, oh, you're them guys. You were friends with this guy. You must have had something. People will just make assumptions. So I can understand it. If it was their idea to wear masks, then I can totally understand that. But at the same time, there were a few photos within the documentary where there were other people who I would say probably live in the same area that were not covered face. So that makes it a bit more.
Oh, the one where it's like blurry and it's just him. Do you remember that one where it's like him? Obviously, he's never censored himself, but there's one where it's like a group of people where it's kind of like they're just like all merged together in a way. I think they tried to blur it slightly, but
it didn't work very well. I like, there was a girl in one of the pictures and I could clearly make out her features, and I was like, okay, that doesn't quite make sense. Like, why? Like, have they got has the documentary filmmaker got a problem with this girl? Like, yeah, we'll put your face out there. Like, so yeah, that to me, that was the point where I was like, okay, so what's the point in the masks and blurring the faces then?
Yeah, I feel like it was a bit of a gimmick just to get people to watch. I thought it was cool. It made me want to watch it more. Like, I find it funny. When they showed like the party photos, and Buzz Lightyear just looks like stoned in like loads of them.
Buzz Lightyear was he was definitely the mask that I just kept looking at it. Like, there was times where I'd giggle and I was like, why am I laughing? Like, but it's because it's just this bulbous face. And because Buzz doesn't usually wear sunglasses, that jarred with me. I'm like, okay, this is strange.
Did you notice that the masks got edited?
Yeah. So like with I think it was the Mario mask, and they'd cut the eyes out where it had obviously been like cartoon eyes,
or like 2 little dots or whatever.
But they'd cut the eyes out. And to a degree, I appreciate that as well, because at least you can read something from the people. Like within eye movement and stuff like that. But like I say, I feel that The Mask did they both gave and took away from the documentary. For what it was, it does feel gimmicky. I mean, it's a 21-minute documentary. If you can't, keep focused for 21 minutes, you're going to struggle with some, big documentaries.
Yeah, it's at the reviews online for it, and it's been absolutely slated.
Oh, really?
IMDb, it's just like 1-star reviews saying it's like, I want 21 minutes of my life back again. Just loads of people just completely just trashing it because they just hated it. They think there's no substance at all to it. It doesn't really go anywhere.
I wouldn't give it the regard of dislike that or that you say it seems to be getting. But I think, again, if I had have only watched it once, I wouldn't have got the substance I've got from it after a second watch. So, again, if someone watches it, obviously for this, we've watched it for a purpose. We're going to watch it more than once, and we're going to look for little bits here and there. But for someone just casually, scrolling through Netflix, oh, here's a little documentary I can watch within, my lunch break or whatever at work. I could understand why they'd come away feeling a bit like, like, what was that? Like, what was the point in that? Is there any, what's to be learned from this? Like, which I feel a lot of documentaries, you can learn from. But again, on the second viewing, I think there is more substance to it than meets the eye. You could look at the documentary itself, like me saying about, after one watch, you may not get so much from it. Like that first watch is The Mask.
Yeah.
And the second watch is the reveal. Like, that's the taking off of the mask, and that's it's the opening of Pandora's box, so to speak,
That's it. That's it. You've nailed it in one sentence.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. And I feel that is, in a way, that's the point of the documentary. It's actually very clever. Like, but it takes that second watch, I feel, to get that. But again, like I feel I could probably watch this again and gain more from it. I mean, there's only so much you can get out of 21 minutes, but it is like Optimus Prime, one of the masks, more than meets the eye. Like, that's Transformers. There you go. Like, that's it. That's my take from the documentary. Is that first watch is The Mask. You take off that mask for the second watch, and it reveals so much more.
So overall, would you watch it again?
Do you know what? It's 21 minutes. The amount of rubbish I watch sometimes that is either 21 minutes or longer, like, I could watch that again. But if I had only watched it once for the purposes of just watching a documentary, if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't have gone in for a second watch. I would have probably written it off. But again, doing it for the purposes of actually reviewing it has made me go for that second watch. And I've understood so much more from it. So, do you know what? I probably would go in for another watch. Maybe not tonight. No. Maybe not this week. But, whilst it's still in my mind, definitely, because I'd like to see if there's more I could understand. But at the same time, I would prefer a follow-up. The whole point of this documentary is to get across that this guy went over there to do something. And then by the end of the documentary, you're left with, there is absolutely no doubt he went and done this, and now he's been caught. So I feel that you leave the documentary feeling like, for me, originally, like, on that first watch, I was like, okay, so the end of this documentary is going to be, did he, didn't he? We've never found out, did he, didn't he? Yeah. And I kind of enjoyed that aspect. I kind of enjoyed the kind of leaving it up to the viewer until that kind of like full stop at the end where it's like, oh no, he done it.
I personally think the documentary is not even really about him. It's about the people. It's the people in the documentary, his friends group who are left behind. They're the ghosts of Sugarland, which is a real place. Because I always thought it was just like a made up thing. They were trying to hide where that was, but no, it's a real place.
Yeah. And you know, just commenting on one of the scenes, like I don't know if it's one of the interview areas. I don't know if it's a car park or what, but they got some great graffiti. Like I saw some Batman stuff. Like I was like, that looks pretty cool. I like that. Like, but again, kind of playing into this mask kind of aspect of everything. It is very, very tough. Like it's hard to review. I think that's what I'm struggling with. Like to begin with, I thought, am I reviewing Mark the character, or am I reviewing the documentary as a whole? Because it feels at first like I said, because it's kind of starts out as a kind of mystery, like whether he went there or whether he was a FBI informant. Like I was kind of under the understanding, I was like, oh, so it's going to be a kind of did he, didn't he? Like I thought that's the point of this documentary. And then, like I say, after finding out, of course, you know, that he went over there by the end of it. But then, like I say, on that second watch, it's like the layers are peeled back and you get to see a bit more clearly what the documentary is actually about.
One thing I did find though was the backgrounds of the shots were really interesting. Like I love the guy being interviewed in that shot. And
yeah, like the
people just
convenience store. Yeah, people like buying things. Like, yeah,
people just walking around buying that. I think that's why it's so hard to kind of take in everything in the first watch, is because there's so much going on in the background. It's like, and then you got the mask in front of you, so you're distracted by that. So you're not even like really kind of taking in any of this the first time. The only time you're listening,
it's smoke and mirrors almost. It's very much a kind of like you need to really look within to find what you want to find through this documentary. Like it's not I think it should be given more credit than what it's been given. If what you say the reviews seem to be for it.
Yeah, the views and I think the critics as well kind of have panned it a bit as well. It's I don't know. It's
I mean I can criticize it. Like my critical view is like I think there needs to be that other side. But then again, like we said, you know, like we don't know what the budget was. We don't know how much time there was to make this. And also, like they say in the very beginning, his friends say, like, why now?
Yeah.
Like, why now? Why is this of interest to you now? And that sparks my interest as well. Like, why now? Did they make that when he'd been brought back? No, because they said the filming was over when they finished filming, that he'd been captured, but he'd not been brought back to the US by that point.
What did you think of them using his Facebook messages, his statuses and stuff like that do you feel like they just chose the most damning stuff?
Well, I imagine it's very tough to get a narrative from him if he's not there to give it. Yeah. So I can understand them needing something because otherwise, I suppose in a way, it's a way of them getting something across. But then social media is such a tough one because like people write all sorts on social media. It feels that nowadays people are kind of really understanding a lot more about social media, and you could have someone that's depressed. Let's say he was depressed at one point and he just had this almost like rage, and the only way to release that rage was through venting online, through his social media, through Facebook or whatever. And that was his way of like, I just need to release this. Yeah. And in a way, I look at that as, well, I'd rather someone release that kind of anger or tension in that way than doing something really bad or harmful. Like, that's, obviously it would be a lot better for someone in that position to talk and to actually talk to someone and vent that way. That's a much more healthier way of doing it. But in the current day and age, a lot of people's social activity is through social media. So that's the way they get their point across. Like, again, social media, you could look at as a mask. We show what we want to show. But at the same time, like, you could look at social media as people only putting the best parts out there. Like, you hear that all the time. Like, with social media, you only get the best parts of people's life. But there's a section of social media as well where people vent, and it's not necessarily the best. It's not what they'd say out in public, but they feel there's this mask there, like, that they can put over their face and say the things that are getting at them on the inside. And I imagine a lot of from what the documentary tells us about him anyway, I take from it that a lot of his anger come from feeling of not belonging, and that it was his way of, and when he found he belonged, when he was brought into this group with his friends by becoming Muslim. I think it says in the documentary he done it 3 times. And they mention in that, his friends mention that each time you do it, you're embraced by like, I think it said like uncles and stuff. So I'm guessing of maybe his friends' families or something. So maybe to him that was like that made him feel good. That made him feel a part. Made it. Yeah. And then the group that made him feel wanted, his friends, but in a larger aspect, the Muslim community, when he then saw that they were being attacked, like, in his mind, he's like, they say in the documentary, I think one of his friends say that he says, like, I'm not quoting word for word, but how can we as American Muslims sit by and watch them just pummel other Muslims into the ground and sit idly by? And that, like, you can understand that. Anyone can understand that. So again, I look at that as he wanted to protect the people that saved him, in a sense.
But one thing I found interesting, though, was when you find out about what actually become of him and what he was doing there in the first place. If you go back and like look at the bit where their friends are complaining that he's doing some kind of like Yelp review of the IS, like Islamic State. They're saying like, they do have TV, they do have this, and I feel like
almost a way of him counteracting the newspapers.
Yes, that's exactly it. So it feels like he's kind of just, it's like a Q&A for people who are just kind of brainwashed by the typical stuff they see on TV. He's like
which again is commendable, because it's like, okay, they're telling you this, I'm actually here.
Yeah,
this is what's really happening, and and so you could argue that maybe before he chose, when he inevitably chose to go out there, maybe that was part of his MO. Like, maybe that was like his whole point of saying, okay, well, you're all attacking, but you're not getting the truth, and I want to show you the truth.
Yeah.
But again, the trouble there is, unfortunately, media is very, very powerful, and he's just one guy. And as much as you'd love to think that, oh yeah, he could just go out there and report on his findings, it's only going to reach so many people, whereas the media have everyone.
And that's all for this episode. I'd like to thank Matt for joining me on this one. If you want to get involved or send us your thoughts or your feedback, you can do so by using the links in the show notes. You can also follow us on social media to find out what documentary we'll be covering next. Thanks for listening. Until next time.